was going to say that's why the review is so crucial, right? I mean, you write a review and you review it because some of these platforms allow peer review. You're the person reviewing, then it gets posted online, and then you can either skip it or have more buy-in because, you know, we need you to vet it. And I think people are starting to realize the importance of it. So you're engaging in the process if you decide to, you know, take this activity and work with it.
Yeah, I'm throwing up a slide here. This is actually, I think, the most confusing slide and probably the best slide that I have, talking about like what's most open and what's least open. And I had a professor once at another university ask me which one's better, and I said I couldn't tell you, because just as you click on these the actual symbols above, it tells you like what share and share alike, non-derivatives, attribution, what you're free to do with it. So like, even though it's an odd slide to look at, you can share and adapt it, but you can't like revoke the freedoms as with those following terms. So it becomes very, very I don't know if the word is wishy-washy. And I know that sounds silly, but I mean, it's like building a course is not easy to begin with. And I think that's an obvious thing. And when you're picking materials, it's important to not only spend time with them, you know, before the course is going to be built, but when you're reviewing a book, think about it as a student and, as the person in the panel said, and as a professor, so that you can see what they're actually going to use it and see how it will be used.
Okay, you guys are with me. All right, so let's go. We went through the search. You've got all of these repositories. You've got all of these search tools that you have access to, all of the links that you will keep access to after this session wraps up here in 15 minutes or so. But we wanted to just walk through the review process, right? So what we're asking for, again, this is not a requirement for coming to this workshop, but if this is something that you're interested in receiving the $200 educational media kit that comes along with it, and that is just the practice. The part of this process is just being able to sort of critically look at, well, let me take a look. What are some criteria that I can use to evaluate these resources that I find? And so we did not come up with the structure for this review process. This is sort of a set of criteria that's been, I can't remember who originally developed it. I think it's cited here in this template. But the 11 pieces or 11 points of what we want you to think about is things like comprehensiveness. Is the content accurate? How long is this going to remain applicable? And I'm not, rather than me reading these points here, let me just pull up the template. And so if this is something that you're interested in doing, this open review template is basically just you fill out what's here, right? What is the name of the textbook that you found? You might put in here, what is this? Is this more an undergraduate, early undergraduate course? Is this a graduate level textbook? Just giving us some information about your name, email, title, and then actually going through each of these criteria and saying, for comprehensiveness, we do ask for, we do want like where you give it on a scale of 1 to 5. I would give this a 4, or I would give this a 2, and then say a little bit more about that, right? Why would you say you give it a 2 if that's the extent that that's what how you review it? Sort of scrolling down here, for interface, to what extent is the text free of significant interface issues, including navigation problems, distortion of images, shorts, and so on, right? So you just kind of go through this, give a little write-up. I don't think you have to have read the book cover to cover in order to have a thorough review, but you do have to dig into it a little bit and do more than just like, I read a little bit of the first chapter and kind of skim the rest of the book. But it just gives you some structure for some things to think about if you're considering adopting this into your own course. Ultimately, the goal of this process is not just an exercise in textbook review, but we expect that people are here because you're like, can I find resources that are going to be good for me in the courses that I teach? So maybe you're coming at this process of thinking, well, let me think about my whatever, EEC 2404 course. Like, would this work here? Is this something that I can actually use? And some structure to like think about that, right? So on this submission page, after you find the template, we've provided some examples of completed reviews using this structure. So if, for example, you click on this link here, let me actually do that. I'll go ahead and go here. This is actually a textbook that comes out of the Open Textbook Library. If I
It's a
scroll,
great title, by the way. Did you see the title?
Teaching in a Digital Age, Guidelines for Designing Teaching and Learning. Yes. So if you scroll down here, there are, whatever, I can take a look at some reviews that have been written on this book, or it's got, here's the this person gave comprehensiveness, they gave it a 5. Here's the reason why. This is why. I don't know if this is a really great book or this person really loved it. They gave it all 5s, but gave some clarification about how they reviewed it, what they thought, why it met each of these, why they gave it that score in each of these categories. And then what we also did here is sort of took this same example and said, okay, if this person were submitting this review for this workshop, what would that look like? And this is not the one I clicked on. This is another one. This person wrote a lot here. We would not ask you to be as necessarily as extensive. You certainly can write this much, but this person had a lot to say about the book. But what would it look like if one person, if we put this in the structure that we're asking for this textbook review workshop, right? And so it's, you give it a narrative and you give it, what's the score? 5 out of 5, right? And so you can find access to, there's example 1 of a book where you can see the online reviews, or you can see an example of the textbook review done in the format that we are providing. And then here's a second example, using open educational resources to promote social justice. And you can see there is a link. You can see again another example. If one of the reviews in mind, if we put it into this textbook or into this format, what does that look like? And you have those examples there in front of you. And then the last piece that we're asking for here is we have no idea if this is something, if you know, everybody who comes to this session is going to plan on writing up a review, or people are just like, hey, I wanted access to the resources and I'm good. That's fine too. If you're planning on doing the write-up, if you're planning on doing the open text review, we call this an application. It's just a link to fill out so that we can track if you end up getting the study, if you end up completing the review, we want to be able to like follow up with you, make sure that, you know, you submitted it, make sure we, you know, have it triggered so you can receive the educational media toolkit. And so we just ask you to fill this out if you intend on writing a review. It's not locking you into anything. We're not going to, you know, come after you if you don't. But if you're saying at this point, like, hey, I think I'm going to try to write up the review, fill out that form. And it will help us follow up with you and make sure, you know, we answer your questions and get you anything you need along the way. Cool.